The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with unshed storms, until it finally broke, sending rain down in sheets that blurred the world into a watercolor painting of gray and slate. I sat on the porch step, hugging my knees, mesmerized by the way the water hammered against the puddles. I was small for my age, barely looking 6, with black hair plastered to my pale cheeks and a constitution that my father always whispered was too fragile for this world. My attention drifted from the puddles to a dark shape huddled near the flower beds in the distance. It was obscured by the manicured hedges, a shadow trembling in the mist. I hesitated, listening to the rain drumming against the roof, before I grabbed the small yellow umbrella by the door and stepped out. The wind whipped the leaves of the flower bed, and there, curled up like a wounded animal, was a boy. He looked a year or two older than me, soaked to the bone. His hair was a wet, darkened gold, plastering his forehead, and water dripped from his nose. Hearing my footsteps, he snapped his head up, clutching a backpack to his chest. His eyes were a startling, icy blue, filled with a ferocity that didn't belong on a child's face. He looked like a cornered wolf cub. "Go back," he snarled, his voice cracking with cold and rage. "I'm not going back. Get lost." I blinked, confused. I didn't understand why he was so angry. I just tilted my head, squatting down in front of him, the umbrella casting a small circle of dry sanctuary between us. I dug into my pocket and pulled out a small, folded handkerchief, my favorite one with the little ducks on it, and held it out. He stared at it, then glared at me. "Don't come any closer." I said get lost. I flinched, shrinking back. But then, a loud, undeniable growl erupted from his stomach, louder than the rain. The boy froze. His face turned a brilliant shade of crimson. He shoved his backpack against his stomach, pressing his lips together in a tight, humiliated line. I blinked again, my fear dissolving into sympathy. He looked like a stray puppy I'd seen on TV. "Are you hungry?" I whispered. He glared at the ground, his pride warring with his starvation. "No," he lied, though his voice wavered. I stood up. "Wait here." I ran back to the house, leaving him in the rain. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a large, ripe tomato from the counter. It was all I could reach, and stuffed it into the pocket of my overalls. When I returned, he was still there, shivering violently now. I squatted down again and offered the red fruit with both hands. "Eat," I said softly. He looked at me, then at the tomato. He was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. Finally, survival instinct won. He snatched the tomato and devoured it, juice running down his chin, eating as if he hadn't seen food in days. When he was done, he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. "Thank you," he muttered, the words clumsy in his mouth. "Where are your mom and dad?" I asked. He clamped his mouth shut. "My feet are cold," I said, standing up. "I'm going inside." To my surprise, he stood up too. He followed me, staying 3 steps behind, his wet shoes making a squelching sound with every step. I stopped. He stopped. I walked. He walked. He trailed me all the way to the porch of the servants' quarters where I lived with my dad. I sat on my little stool and looked at him. He stood in the rain, dripping, looking miserable. "Come here," I said, patting the dry spot next to me. He hesitated, then stepped onto the porch. His shoes went squeak squish, squeak squish. He looked down at them, mortified, his face burning red again. He sat down heavily on the floor, crossing his arms. I went inside and brought out a towel. He took it, rubbing his hair roughly, then shook his head like a dog, spraying water everywhere. I squeezed my eyes shut as the cold droplets hit my face. When I opened them, he was staring at me, his ears turning pink. "Sorry," he mumbled. Just then, the main gates of the estate burst open. A black sedan roared through the rain, headlights cutting the gloom. My father, the driver for the Sterling family, jumped out, holding an umbrella for Mr. Sterling, who looked frantic, shouting into his phone. "I promise it's the last time. Bobby is fine, He ran off. "Mr. Sterling yelled, hanging up and running a hand through his hair. My dad, Mr. Miller, saw me on the porch and waved. "Brian, get inside, it's cold." Then he froze. He looked at the boy sitting next to me. The boy with the golden hair and the blue eyes. The missing heir the entire estate had been hunting for hours. "Oh, sweet mercy," my dad whispered. Dad, I chirped. Look, I found him. He doesn't have a home, just like the puppy on TV. My dad looked like he might faint. Brian, that's Bobby Sterling. That's the young master. That night, the Sterling mansion was ablaze with lights. I sat on a velvet sofa that was bigger than my bed, my legs dangling. Mr. Sterling was there, looking exhausted but relieved. So, I said, looking at the chandelier, he isn't a stray puppy? No, Brian, my dad said nervously, smoothing my hair. He is Mr. Sterling's son. Mr. Sterling knelt in front of me. Brian, I want to thank you. Bobby, he's had a hard time adjusting since he moved here from Europe. He refuses to speak to anyone. But he ate the tomato you gave him. He paused, his voice gentle. Would you do me a favor? Would you go upstairs and sit with him? He won't take his medicine. I looked at my dad, who nodded anxiously. Okay, I whispered. The butler led me to a massive door. He knocked. Master Bobby? Your friend is here. Go away, came the shout from inside. I have no friends. I pushed the door open anyway. Bobby was sitting on the floor, surrounded by untouched toys. When he saw me, he stopped shouting. I walked over and sat down next to him. I didn't say anything. I just sat there. After a long silence, he picked up a toy car and pushed it toward me. For you, he grunted. That was how it started. By the time we were 7, Bobby Sterling had decided 2 things. 1, he hated this country, and 2, I belonged to him. It wasn't a question. It was a fact, like gravity. One afternoon, my dad brought me to the main house. Bobby was waiting at the top of the stairs, looking imperious. You're late, he accused. I had to finish my coloring book, I said, showing him my hands stained with marker. Come on. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me to his room. I learned a new word today. He pulled out a picture book and pointed to a word. Mine. He pointed to his expensive train set. Mine. He pointed to the bed. Mine. Then he pointed a finger at my chest. Mine. I blinked. I'm Brian. No, he said stubbornly, his alpha instincts already showing even though we were just kids. You are mine. You smell like milk. I like it. I do not smell like milk. I protested. Yes, you do. Sweet milk. He leaned in and sniffed my neck, making me squirm. Don't move. I'm scenting you. What's scenting? It means. He frowned, trying to remember what his father had explained about alpha and omega dynamics. It means other alphas have to stay away. Because you're with me. I didn't really get it, but Bobby seemed very serious about it, so I let him rub his cheek against my shoulder. A few months later, we started attending the prestigious Golden Sun Academy. Bobby hated it. He wanted to buy the school and fire all the teachers so we could stay home and play. We can't fire the teachers, Bobby. I explained patiently over lunch. Then we wouldn't learn anything. I don't need to learn, he grumbled, stabbing a piece of broccoli. I'm rich. But I'm not, I said. I need to learn so I can get a job. He stopped eating and stared at me with intense blue eyes. You don't need a job. I have money. I'll buy you a house. Next to mine. No, inside mine. That's silly. Just then, a heavy shadow fell over our table. It was Kyle, a bully from the grade above. He was big, mean, and had his eye on my strawberry yogurt. Give it here, runt. Kyle sneered, reaching for my tray. Before I could react, Bobby moved. It was a blur of motion. 1 second he was sitting, the next he was standing on the bench, launching himself at Kyle. He didn't fight like a kid. He fought like a feral animal protecting its territory. Don't touch him. Bobby roared, tackling Kyle to the ground. Don't touch his food. Teachers came running, whistles blowing. They pulled Bobby off a bloody-nosed Kyle. Bobby was panting, his lips split, his eyes wild. He looked at me, panic flashing across his face. Did he take it? Bobby demanded, ignoring the principal who was shouting his name. Brian, did he take your yogurt? No, I whispered, terrified. Bobby, your lip. He wiped the blood away with the back of his hand, smearing it across his cheek. Good. Nobody takes what's yours. That afternoon, in the nurse's office, while I held an ice pack to his face, he looked at me seriously. You have to be careful, Brian, he said. You're too soft. You smell too sweet. Wolves like Kyle. They want to eat you up. I have you, I said simply. Bobby puffed out his chest, wincing as the movement pulled his split lip. Yeah, you have me. Middle school brought changes. We grew taller. My scent became distinct, strawberries and cream, sweet, and heavy. Bobby's scent deepened into something like cedarwood and rain, sharp and overpowering. He was presenting as a prime alpha, and everyone knew it. I made a new friend, Spencer. Spencer had curly hair and liked comic books. He was a beta, harmless and fun. One day, Spencer gave me a mechanical pencil. It was silver and sleek. I liked it. I was using it to do my homework in the library when Bobby sat down opposite me. He stared at the pencil. "Where did you get that?" His voice was low, vibrating with a growl. "Spencer gave it to me," I said, not looking up. Mine broke. Bobby's scent spiked, filling the small library cubicle with the smell of ozone and storm. He reached out, snatched the pencil from my hand, and snapped it in half. "Bobby," I cried out. "Why did you do that?" "It was ugly," he said flatly, tossing the pieces into the trash can. "I'll buy you a new one. A gold one." "I don't want a gold one." "That was a gift." I stood up, gathering my books. "You're being a jerk." I walked out. He didn't follow me. That was the first time we fought for real. We didn't speak for 3 days. It felt like a limb was missing. On the 4th night, my phone rang. I ignored it. Then I heard a pebble hit my window. I opened it to see Bobby standing in the garden below, looking up. He looked pale. "Brian," he called out, his voice shaking. "Come down. Please." I ran down. He was sitting on the grass, clutching his jaw, blood trickling from his mouth. "Bobby." I dropped to my knees. "What happened? Did you get in a fight?" He looked at me with tear-filled eyes, all his alpha arrogance gone. "I'm dying, Brian. I'm bleeding out. I have leukemia, like in that movie we watched." "What?" I panicked, grabbing his face. "Let me see." "No, don't look, it's hideous," he sobbed. "I just wanted to tell you. I'm sorry about the pencil. And you can't be best friends with Spencer when I'm dead. Promise me." "I promise." "Let me see." I pried his mouth open. There was blood, yes. But there was also a gap. I sat back on my heels, wiping my tears. "Bobby," I said, my voice flat. "You lost a tooth." He blinked, sniffing. "What?" "You lost a molar. You're not dying. You're teething." He touched the gap with his tongue. "Oh, you idiot." I laughed, the relief making me giddy. "You absolute idiot." He tackled me into the grass, hugging me tight, burying his face in my neck. "I thought I was a goner," he mumbled into my scent gland. "I thought I'd never smell you again." "Gross," I said, but I held him back. By high school, Bobby was the king of the school. Captain of the basketball team, top of the class, rich, handsome. He was the alpha everyone wanted. But everyone also knew the rule, don't touch Brian. I was in the advanced placement classes, studying hard. Bobby was naturally gifted, barely studying, but acing everything. One afternoon, during a thunderstorm, the basketball team was practicing for the finals. I was in the library, waiting for the rain to let up. My phone buzzed. "Bobby, where are you?" Asterisk me, library. "Studying." "Don't skip practice." Asterisk Bobby. Too late. 5 minutes later, the library doors swung open. Bobby strode in, drenched in rain, wearing his jersey and shorts. He dripped water onto the carpet as he walked straight to my table. The librarian shushed him, but one look from Bobby made her look away. "You weren't at the game," he said, standing over me. "It was just a scrimmage," I whispered. "I have a test tomorrow." "I don't play well when you're not watching," he said, pulling out the chair next to me and collapsing into it. He smelled of rain, sweat, and intense cedar. It was dizzying. "You're wet," I said. "You'll ruin the books." "Dry me off then." He leaned his head on my shoulder, soaking my shirt. I sighed, pulling a small towel from my bag. I always carried one for him, and started drying his hair. He closed his eyes, humming contentedly, practically purring. "Chase was asking about you today," Bobby said suddenly, his voice hard. Chase was a transfer student. Handsome, rich, and very interested in me. "He just asked for notes," I said, my hand stilling in his hair. "He wants to mate you," Bobby growled. "I can smell it on him. It's disgusting. Like cheap cologne." "Bobby, stop." He grabbed my hand, pressing his face into my palm. "I hate it. I hate that he looks at you. I want to lock you in my room where no one can see you." "That's kidnapping," I pointed out gently. "I'd feed you," he muttered. "I'd give you all the tomatoes you want." He lifted his head, his blue eyes dark. "Brian, do you like him?" "No," I said. "I don't like anyone." "Good." He leaned in, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin over my pulse point on my wrist. It wasn't a bite, but the threat of one. A claim. Keep it that way. The tension broke during the school camping trip. It was mandatory military-style training in the mountains. The dorms were cramped, the beds rickety. Of course, Bobby manipulated the assignments so we were in the same room. This mattress is made of rocks, Bobby complained, throwing his bag onto the top bunk. It's character building, I said, unpacking my toiletries. I have enough character, he retorted. That night, the lights went out at 10. The air was cold. I lay on my bottom bunk, shivering under the thin blanket. Brian, Bobby's voice drifted down from above. Yeah. Are you cold? A little. I heard the rustle of sheets, then a thud as Bobby jumped down. He squeezed into my narrow bunk. Bobby, we'll get in trouble. I hissed. Shut up. You're freezing. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling my back against his chest. He was a furnace. His pheromones wrapped around me like a heavy, protective blanket. Better, he whispered, his breath hot on my ear. Yeah, I breathed. We lay there in the dark. I could feel his heart beating against my spine. It was fast. Too fast. Brian, he said, his voice straining. I had a dream last night. About what? About you. He tightened his grip. We weren't sleeping. We were doing something else. My breath hitched. Bobby. I woke up and he buried his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. I felt like I was going crazy. I wanted to bite you. I wanted to mark you so deep that even if you scrubbed your skin off, you'd still smell like me. He moved his hips slightly, and I felt the hardness pressing against me. I froze. Sorry, he groaned, pulling back slightly but not letting go. I can't help it. Being this close. It's torture. But being away is worse. It's okay, I whispered, turning in his arms to face him. The moonlight filtered through the dusty window, illuminating the sharp angles of his face. He looked tortured, hungry. I reached up and touched his cheek. I'm not going anywhere. He closed his eyes, leaning into my touch. You don't get it. I don't just want to be your friend, Brian. I want to be your alpha. I want to be the only one. Before I could answer, the door burst open. The drill instructor shone a flashlight in our faces. What is going on here? He roared. Bobby didn't flinch. He didn't even let go of me. He just glared at the instructor, his eyes flashing gold in the light, the sign of a prime alpha challenged. He was cold, Bobby growled, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating with command. Get that light out of his face. The instructor, a beta, actually took a step back, intimidated by a 16-year-old boy. The next day, the rumors were flying. Bobby Sterling had claimed Brian Miller. Everyone knew. During the free period, I was filling my water bottle at the communal tap near the woods when Chase cornered me. So, Chase said, leaning against a tree, is it true? You're sleeping with the prince. Leave me alone, Chase, I said, screwing the cap on. You know he's just playing with you, right? Chase stepped closer, invading my personal space. Alphas like him. They play with omegas like you until they get bored. Then they marry some rich heiress. You're just the driver's son. He's not like that, I said, backing up. Come on, Brian. Let me show you what a real man is like. Chase reached out, grabbing my arm. Let go. Just one kiss. Suddenly, Chase was ripped away from me. It happened so fast I barely registered it. Bobby had come out of nowhere. He slammed Chase into the chain-link fence with a metallic crash that echoed through the clearing. Bobby didn't say a word. He just punched. Once. Twice. The sound of fist meeting bone was sickening. Chase crumbled to the ground, groaning. Bobby stood over him, his chest heaving. He turned to me, his knuckles bloody, his eyes wild with adrenaline and rage. Did he touch you? Bobby demanded, storming over to me. He grabbed my shoulders, checking me over frantically. Did he hurt you? I'm fine, Bobby, I'm fine. I tried to calm him down, but his pheromones were suffocating, burnt wood and thunder. I'll kill him, Bobby snarled, looking back at Chase. I'll kill him if he looks at you again. Bobby, look at me. I cupped his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. I'm right here. I'm okay. He shuddered, leaning his forehead against mine. I can't lose you, Brian. I can't. You won't. He pulled back, searching my face. Then, he reached into his pocket. His hand was shaking as he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. It was a drawing I had made when we were 7. A picture of 2 stick figures holding hands under a yellow umbrella. You kept this? I asked, my voice trembling. I keep everything, he whispered. Every note, every wrapper, every memory. Because you're my life, Brian. You're my gravity. He took a deep breath, the adrenaline fading into vulnerability. I love you, he said. Not as a friend. Not as a brother. As my Omega. The rain started to fall then, just like the day we met. A soft, steady drizzle. I smiled, tears mixing with the rain on my cheeks. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, worn handkerchief with ducks on it. The same one I gave him 10 years ago. He had given it back to me after he washed it, and I'd carried it ever since. I know, I said, wiping the blood from his cheek. I love you too, Bobby. He let out a breath that sounded like a sob, and then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, possessive, and terrified, tasting of rain and blood and forever. And in the distance, I could hear the other students shouting, teachers running, chaos erupting. But under the shelter of the trees, in the circle of his arms, everything was quiet. Everything was right. Let's go home, he murmured against my lips. Yeah, I said, holding his hand tight. Let's go home.